It's time to get inside the Giants Huddle.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
On Giants.com.
I like it, I like it.
And the Giants mobile app.
Boom, give me some juice.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's roll.
Welcome to another edition of the Giants Huddle Podcast. I am John Schmeelk. It's all brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Football Giants. Now we welcome in Devin McCourty. He played for the Patriots from 2010 to 2022. You can see his coverage of Sunday Night Football on Football Night of America. It starts at 7 p.m. on NBC on Sunday night, coverage of Giants and Bengals. Then, of course, stay tuned after the game, the Peacock Sunday Night Football final as well. Devin, good to see you, man. A fellow Jersey guy. How are you, dude?
Good, man. It's fun being back in Jersey because every time and everywhere I go, I get reminded that I lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. I just was at school pickup, and Justin Tuck's son came up to my son and asked him for a gusher. My son said no. He was like, see, I was going to tell my dad not to beat your dad in the Super Bowl anymore, but hey, and I just laughed. So always fun being back here and living here now and fun watching these games every Sunday.
Luckily, you have enough Super Bowl rings sitting there that I think you can handle that just fine.
You know, I told him that. I had to let him know.
Absolutely. Now, Devin, you've been out to Giants camp a couple times over the summer. So before we get to where they are now, what were your impressions in terms of how Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll run the building, how they put things together, and kind of what you saw as this team prepared for the season?
For one, it was awesome being in the building. And for me, the thing that stuck out was just the movement, how many different people were around. Like, as a player, I think about that, like, you're walking through, and if you're a linebacker, Carl Banks is in there eating lunch. You can go up to Carl Banks and ask him about the game of football. John Mara was in there having lunch, talking to guys, doing different things. So when I look and I see that, that looks like an organization where everyone's involved. They all have roles and everybody's accessible. Whenever you're a player, and, you know, luckily for me being in New England, it was very similar with Kraft being in there, Andre Tippett, a Hall of Fame. Like, these people are always moving around and accessible to the coaches, to the players, and then on field, watching the team go through different things. Obviously, the first thing that stuck out to me was Malik Neighbors was pretty damn good, because each practice we went to, he was making high-flying plays. I drafted him early in my fantasy league. That's been paying it off so far. But, yeah, I just think that team operates and they move in a very professional way. I think Brian Daboll obviously sets the table, gets everybody going. It starts with him. But just the way they attack practice, the energy, and then get an opportunity to just be around the coaches, it just seems like they have a really good staff working together. And I think the thing so far that I've watched them this year is you can see they just continue to build. Everyone, you know, you're in New York, New Jersey area, everyone goes crazy after every game. If you win, hey, man, this team has a chance to, you know, be a real contender. If you lose, it's get rid of everybody. This is terrible. So, but I think when you watch the Giants, it's just been building. They're getting better and better. And it shows Sunday the way they play Seattle.
Yeah, you could not be more right. Before I get to that Seattle game, just as a curiosity, how much of a relationship did you have with Brian Daboll? He was an offensive guy, I believe, for the whole time when you were in New England. You were on defense. But, you know, Dave's is Dave's. He kind of operates his own way. So how much of a close relationship did you have with him?
You see, I smile right away when you ask the question, because our relationship was usually talking trash to each other. Daboll was coaching the tight ends, so I was playing safety. So the tight end and safety one-on-ones. If Gronk made a play on me or Patrick Chung, Daboll would be over there making some kind of gesture or come walk up behind you and at the end of practice, put his arm around you and say something that Gronk did, or he'd crack a joke walking off the field. So Daboll was the kind of guy that, even though he coached offense, he just had a relationship with so many different guys in the building, whether it was telling jokes or telling stories, talking about how, you know, him and Josh McDaniels used to be coaching the DBs. There's just so many different things with Dave's, and that's why, like, I enjoy going back and talking to him and seeing this team, because I know the type of guy he is.
Yeah, look, you mentioned, I think this team has gotten better every week. What jumped out at you in terms of the next steps they took, winning in Seattle on Sunday? First of all, no procedural penalties in that building is a minor miracle. Great job doing that. And then to win that game without Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary, where did you see the big jump that allowed them to walk out of that building with a win?
Yeah, I think the first thing we talked about without Singletary and Neighbors was, to us in New England, like, we would sometimes split the team up, and, you know, Josh would coach one offense and Daboll would coach the other offense. Was as soon as we got in the meeting, like, Daboll would grab some of the defensive guys and be like, hey, I'm going to put you guys out there for a play. I designed this play. And that's what I felt Sunday. He's always been a great game plan offensive coordinator. When he was in Buffalo, it would give us nightmares thinking about the kind of trick play, whether it be Wildcat or something he would go to, because one time we played him without Josh Allen and Derek Anderson that came in. So he added all these new wrinkles to try to get us to get back to the sideline, prepare, hey, he's going to do this, this, this. So he's always been really good at, all right, this is what I have. This is their scheme. This is how I'm going to attack them for just this game. Maybe we won't do it next week, but for this game, it'll help. And what I love what they did on defense was it looked like it was a little bit more disguising, a little bit more blitzes, but it didn't happen right away. It was guys aligned in their regular position, whether it was 5 or 6 yards off the ball, and then on snap, they're blitzing, somebody's rotating late, and it made Geno hold the ball for a second. And you know, like I know, Thibodeau, Burns, Sexy Dexy inside, you can't hold the ball against that defensive front. So the pressure they applied, I think that was really the difference that gave Seattle trouble most of the day.
Okay, I'll get to the defense with you since you just brought it up. The Giants very quietly lead the NFL in sacks right now with 22. I don't think if you asked a lot of people that they would guess that. And what jumps out to me, Devin, is that a lot of times teams that compile these sacks is because they're playing with 14-point leads, 21-point leads.
Yep.
And second half, you can just say, all right, go, go, go. You're going to pick up 3 sacks in the fourth quarter when a team's just trying to throw it every down. The Giants have played close games. They have a negative point differential this year. So the fact that there are 22 sacks with that type of game flow in each of these games, to me, is even more impressive.
Yeah, and I think if I'm the Giants, I'm Joe Shane, I'm looking like, that's what I expect. This team is built from the defensive line back. Like, that's where they invested the money. That's where they have the top draft picks. Like, they have to expect those guys to carry this defense, and they have been doing that. And it hasn't all been great, but I think they really kind of found a rhythm of how they want to play. And I'm interested to see how many different things they do in the game of, okay, we show Seattle this, that's only going to set up for us to now bring this pressure the opposite way, or mix and match some different things. They have a very elite type of matchup nightmare in Isaiah Simmons of you can put him all around the field. We saw, obviously, the block field goal at the end, his athleticism. So I'm interested to see how they kind of build off of this. And I like what they did last week, too, of letting Banks kind of stay on one side for the most part, not matching all over the place. I think sometimes when you do that, the spotlight goes on Banks, but it really takes your whole secondary to be in tune. We used to do that in New England, but that whole week we had some veteran corners, Gilmore, my brother, Jonathan Jones was younger, J.C. Jackson was a rookie. So we were able to manipulate and put those guys in different places. But those guys had so much communication during a week of, okay, when they do this, we're going to do that. So it puts a lot of pressure, and it looked like it settled things down a little bit in the back end of, hey, for the most part, you're just going to go left, fly, you're going to go right. Getting Drew Phillips back in the middle, I think, was big for them. And I think that helped their defense a lot, especially in the secondary.
And especially if you're going to play a lot of zone, you want to have that communication, exactly, right, where you're talking. And, you talked about the movement after the snap. They were showing 2 deep safeties the whole game. But you know what? Sometimes they would stay in quarters. Sometimes they would drop one of the safeties into that robber spot in the middle of the field, right? Is that what you think makes Shane Bowen's defense effective? His ability to disguise, show that 2 high safety. Now, why the Seahawks didn't try to run Kenneth Walker more against those 2 high safeties, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know where to write the thank you card, because that was very helpful for the Giants in that game. But is that what you like about Bowen's defense, the way he kind of tries to manipulate the quarterback, trying to disguise his zone coverages?
Yeah, I came in a preseason, and I sat in one of the meetings, and I'm like, man, I normally played in one system, but I cannot figure out some of these coverages because there was so many different guys moving around. And when you play, you can get away with not doing all that. But when you play the good quarterbacks in the NFL, you cannot just line up and say, hey, we're going to go play, do what you do, we're going to do what we do, because those guys are good for a reason. And you had to do it against Geno Smith, and you really have to do it Sunday night against Joe Burrow, because as I watched Cincinnati's game last week against Baltimore, who's a really good defense, Baltimore, for the most part, lined up in what they were in, and they just played. And Joe Burrow said, okay, you want to do that? You want to show me Jamar Chase has one-on-one? You want to show me T. Higgins has one-on-one? Don't worry about it. I'm going to those guys over and over again. And I think that'll help the Giants defense, just being able to mix things up, 2 high, 1 high, 1 high that looks like one high that goes to two high that looks like too high goes to one. Just mixing and matching, having different guys do different things, making the quarterback get the ball and then have to think and process makes things a lot harder in the NFL.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New you moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
The Giants Huddle podcast is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. From game day celebrations to your everyday financial needs, Big Blue fans can get the most out of every moment with Citizens. Learn more at citizensbank.com/Giants. Yeah, Joe Burrow's an assassin. I mean, he to me, he's basically like the Joe Montana of the modern era, just in the way he operates.
Yep.
And we'll get to the Bengals in a second. Last question on the defense, Devin, before we jump to the offense. You played with Vince Wilfork, one of the best nose tackles we've seen. How much does Dexter Lawrence remind you of him, or is Dexter maybe even a little bit of a better athlete than Vince was?
Yeah, and hopefully Vince will never see this because he's a very sensitive big guy. But Dexter Lawrence, he's a little bit of a different animal. You know, with Vince, everything was built off straight intimidation. And it wasn't intimidation because you thought he was going to do something. No, it was because on a snap every once in a while, he wasn't going to have to just stay at the line and two-gap you. You know, Bill was going to let him go free, and on the snap, he was going to come, take your center, and drive him all the way back. Where Dexter Lawrence has a little bit of, hey, I can drive you straight back. I can also fake you one way, go around you the other way. It's just he's on the field. He can play every single down and be dominant across the board. And it's fun to watch because when you see him in person, he's a big guy, but he's not the, 6'5", 315 pounds, but he can move, he can do different things. And, I think Vince Wilfork is a good comparison because as a lot of people didn't know, Vince had very good quickness, could do different things, but he was just in the NFL in a time where being a nose guard and being able to stand at the line of scrimmage and move a guy and two-gap was a thing. Whereas I would have loved to see him doing kind of what Dexter Lawrence is doing. But, yeah, Dexter Lawrence sets the tone for the Giants defense because as good as those guys are on the edge, if you don't get a middle push, the quarterback's just going to step up and throw the ball wherever he wants. But Dexter Lawrence in the middle of that defense, getting that pressure, not allowing quarterbacks to step up, makes everything and everybody better around him.
All right, let's jump to the offense. You mentioned Malik Neighbors. It's been a ton of fun watching him in camp in the first 4 games. And the impressive thing, the Giants figured out how to beat Seattle without him on the field last week. So from a defensive back perspective, as someone that would have to game plan against the Malik Neighbors, how do you handle him? What are the challenges for a defensive back? And then how do you think the Giants work him now back into the game plan after having so much success last week?
Yeah, it's easy. We double him. We say Malik Neighbors, you're going to see 2 guys all game. We're going to double you to the point you get frustrated. We're going to double you so much that even when we don't double, it's going to start to look like a double, and then we're going to lead. And I say that because my time in the league, when we played guys like that, that's what we did. We took our middle field safety and said, you know what? We're going to play without you, and you're going to go and you're going to double a Calvin Johnson. You're going to double a DeAndre Hopkins. We're not going to let that guy walk away with 15, 18 targets, 12 catches, 160 yards, and a touchdown or 2 touchdowns. We know if that happens, we're probably going to lose. I think now, though, the pressure for defenses is he didn't play. Darius Slayton stepped up and made big plays. Wendell Robinson stepped up and became a go-to guy. So now you're like, all right, how do we want to match this up? How do we want to play? Because we know they have the ability to get to different guys. And I think now the challenge is going to be for Daboll to get Malik Neighbors back involved, but also make this offense explosive by maybe it's a Jalen Hyatt day where we get him matched up backside and the coverage is all rotated to Neighbors and Robinson because we have them both on one side. And now it gives Hyatt a chance, hey, go win on this route and we'll find you. So, and, I think that could be a key for this Giants offense, taking off with other guys now stepping up and making plays.
All right, here's a nerdy defensive football question. How did you prefer to double team a receiver? Did you like the bracket? Did you like 2 guys literally at the line of scrimmage on the guy? Did you like safety over the top, corner press? What did you think the most effective way was to double team a wide receiver?
It all mattered who you played. So you could go bracket and what we call in and out on receivers that you thought you had enough speed that if they stuck their foot in the ground and went vertical, you can run with them. When you had the guys like Antonio Brown is a perfect example. He was a guy that, do we want to go in and out? Probably because he had elite quickness. So asking a guy to stay underneath and a guy over top and him being able to use his quickness is going to be tough. But then you're like, but he also has the speed to stick in his foot in the ground and go vertical. And I would say very similar to Malik Neighbors. Really good quickness, intermediate routes, can run those routes, catch it, and go get yards. But also you're like, but he can go vertical. So to me, I would play where we would switch it up. Safety would always start high, but sometimes he would drop in and we would bracket. Other times he would stay high and the corner would play underneath trail to try to mix it up so the offense didn't get a beat on what you were doing.
That's interesting. So you want to keep the guy guessing in terms of how they beat those.
Exactly.
That makes sense. All right, Daniel Jones had a really tough first week against Minnesota. Since then, Devin, I ran the numbers. 8th in the NFL in passing yards, 7th in passing TDs, 9th in adjusted completion rate, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick, 10th in quarterback rating. And I think we've seen him get better every week. He looks comfortable in the pocket. He's navigating the pocket well, getting the ball out quick. He finally hit 2 deep balls this week after struggling with that the first 4.
Dallas,
what have you seen from Daniel Jones?
For one, I got to spend some time with him. We were at Jason Garrett's football camp, and just an awesome person. And I think he's now developing into the type of player and person he needs to be a quarterback in New York. Forget what everybody is saying. If you play bad and you play poorly, it is what it is. Can't change it, can't do anything about it. And that's what it seems like it's been happening over the last few weeks. The Dallas game plays a pretty good game, but the game ultimately came down to the Malik Neighbors double move. We need a better throw. He probably scores. They jump off sides. Darius Slayton is clean by. We need a better throw. It's probably a touchdown. You come back as a player, you hear that, and you say, I knew that already. I got it. I understand completely. So where do you see that in the next game? Darius Slayton gets behind. Danny dimes, throws it in there, good throw, touchdown. Like, that's the type of player that it seems like he can be, and I think he's getting to the point of saying, you know what, forget everybody. Like, I'm just going to go. And what I love, Daboll unlocked a little bit of what we saw 2 years ago in a playoff game against Minnesota. Daniel Jones running the ball, making some plays with his legs, design quarterback runs, because even though they might not be big games, but even if it never turns into a big game, it's another thing as a defense you have to game plan for. You have to be ready for Daniel Jones running the ball. And that all that does is bring an extra guy in the box and makes it easier for Daniel Jones now when he drops back and throws the ball to have less guys to look at and have better matchups with his receivers.
And look, I think, you know this, I just think people always underrate how important the ecosystem around the quarterback can be. And the improved protection he has, I think, has just improved his comfort level in the pocket. And then having the easy answer guy, Malik Neighbors, all right, they're in man. You know who I'm throwing to every time? That dude. Good
luck.
To me, exactly. Having those two things, I think, just makes it so much easier on a quarterback who, I know young quarterback, sure, 6th year, but to me, that's what's made all the difference here. And it's almost you've watched Jones kind of figure that out during the year. Like, wait a second, I can actually go through 2 reads and not get hit. Wait, I have a guy that wins one-on-one every time. This is a lot easier than it's been the last couple of years.
And the fan base and people need to give him the love and respect because he's the quarterback. Like, you turn on the Washington game, people were like, oh man, Neighbors. And we were sitting in the viewing room and Chris Sims was like, hey guys, like, Daniel Jones is throwing him those balls. Like, this is Daniel Jones dropping back, seeing the coverage, going to Malik Neighbors, understanding where to throw the ball, when to throw the ball. Like, let's give this guy credit. Let's not just dog him out when it's a bad play, made a bad throw. And then when he makes good plays, we say, oh, no, man, Malik Neighbors is just really good. No, we've watched really good receivers be on teams, and we walk away and we say, man, only if that guy had a good quarterback. So when you see Neighbors having this success, it has a lot to do with Daniel Jones and helping Neighbors understand where you need to be, where you need to go. And the same thing we saw Sunday, when you lose that, the quarterback stepping up, telling other guys, hey, Robinson, I need you here. Hey, Slayton, I need you to do this. Hey, Ty Johnson, this is what we need. So credit to Daniel Jones, not just playing a quarterback position, but also his leadership and what he's doing to help that offense go.
Final one on the offense before we jump to the Bengals quick here. We're joined by Devin McCourty. Tyrone Tracy, I'm sure you saw him over the summer when he was here. Guy's got juice. converted wide receiver, just 1 year of running back in college. You wondered how quickly he could figure it all out. Boy, he looked like he figured it all out in week 5, man. He had a good pass pro rep in that game. He's making quick decisions. He's pressing the line, getting those linebackers to commit, then changing the gap he's attacking. How do you now work him back in if Devin Singletary's back healthy this week?
Yeah, and I think that's the greatest thing about, what you get sometimes with injuries and different things that go on is guys that get a lot of reps don't usually get those reps. So when they do get those reps, now all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, he can handle being in there on third down. Oh, wow, we can give him the ball more. So that sometimes doesn't happen when you have the trusted guy in there, because when the situation gets tough, you're like, hey, we have the experience and knowledge with Singletary. Get Devin back in there. Let's go. Hey, he came in, Tracy had a good run or two. Let's get Singletary. So now you walk away, you're like, okay, we have 2 backs, and Eric Gray you throw in there too. Like, we have 3 guys we don't mind giving the ball to, and we know they can make plays. So that's why everyone always talks about when you're a starter and you're a veteran, you don't want to be hurt, because there's young guys behind you who you're helping out. You're watching them get better. You know how the NFL works. When those young guys start showing what they could do, they look at you like, it might be time to move on. So it's fun. It's a part of the game, and a credit to both of those guys. Your number gets called and you're ready to go and you produce. So now they'll both probably see more reps, more touches. Even though Singletary will come back, I think they'll still find ways to work those guys in there.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
The Giants Huddle podcast is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. Citizens will donate $750 to the Giants Foundation for each scoring drive during the 2024 season. Learn more at citizensbank.com/Giants. All right, let's talk about the Bengals. You mentioned it. I think the best pure passing attack probably, in the NFL in terms of dissecting things. So as a defensive back, when you went up against, a Peyton Manning, right? And that's, I think, probably the best comparison for when you played. When you have a quarterback that can see everything and is always a step ahead. What are the biggest challenges of dealing with that type of passing game, especially when you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase outside, 2 guys that can kill you in man-to-man coverage?
Yeah, we played them in 2022 when I was in New England, and you mentioned Montana, you mentioned Manning. The other guy thrown there is the guy I played every day in practice was Tom Brady. When you lined up in it and he could see it, it was hey, alert, and you were getting to something different. It was because, and as a defensive guy, you're like, damn, he knows. Like he knew. And when we played Burrow, I remember everything for us on defense that year, and even a year previously, it was, hey, let's simplify, let's make things easier, let's just go play. And I remember that week, I was like, hey, fellas, I'm not gonna lie to you. We simplify and we think we're gonna just go play. They're gonna steamroll us. I said, turn on the film and watch what Joe Burrow does when he knows what defense you're in. So what did we do? We put in a lot of different wrinkles. We had defenses where we had 8 guys up and only 3 guys back, and then we jumped out of that and played cover 2. Then we blitzed it. Then we jumped out of that and played cover 3. So we played like we never, ever in that game lined up in our defense and just stayed put and played. Like we just knew we couldn't do that because Joe Burrow was going to figure it out. So I think Joe Burrow in the NFL right now is the best at that. He's the best at seeing what you're in and then going to the right guy. And it doesn't help having Higgins and Chase, no doubt about it. But there's not many plays where he's just sitting back there patting the ball because he's not sure what he sees. So when you do get him to do that, you're going to have great success on defense.
And that brings me to my next question. How often can you blitz a guy like Burrow? You look at the pressure rates that the Bengals allow, they're very low. I don't love their offensive line. I think a lot of that has to do with the quarterback keeping those pressure rates low. So how do you try to use blitzes effectively? Because if you blitz too much, you're one-on-one outside, you're going to get murdered by them. You don't have a chance. But you obviously can't just let him sit back there either. So how do you effectively mix in the blitz against a quarterback like Burrow?
It's what you just said. You got to pick and choose. You got to have the moments. Like I think about when we played the Rams. We went Kansas City in 2018 and the Rams, AFC Championship and Super Bowl. And both those offenses and how they kind of ran with Mahomes and Reed and Goff and McVay, we kind of knew they understood when the blitz came. They knew what they wanted to go to. So we knew as a defense, Brian Flores was our defensive coordinator. We had moments where we knew it was like, this is the moment we want to blitz. In 2018, we played Kansas City in the AFC Championship. They get a 2nd and 10, maybe in the fourth quarter, a time where we kind of talked about like, hey, behind the chains, this is when we want to blitz. And I remember everybody in our secondary looking at the sideline like, let's go, Flo, send it. And he didn't. And I remember after the game, he came to me, he's like, that was on me. That was the time. And fast forward to the Super Bowl, fourth quarter, we played golf. We send the blitz. We like, this is our moment. We blitz one time, our max blitz one time. Gilmore gets an interception because we knew it was a time in the game where they had to throw. They had to have all of the guys out to have weapons to throw the ball to so they wouldn't be able to pick it up. Let's go. And I think the Giants have to figure that out of, hey, when do we want to blitz and back it up with zone, right? When we feel comfortable backing up with zone, and then when do we want to blitz and play man behind it? When are those sweet spots that we want to do that where we think, hey, Bengals might be rushing a little bit, the play clock's low, Burrow's not going to have time to adjust. That's when we want to go and do those things. So I'm sure Shane will figure that out of how they want to approach the blitz packages and create pressure, because the good thing for the Giants is you have a front four where you can get home. How can we sometimes make it look like there's pressure, but only rush 4 guys and still have all our full secondary and cover the backfield?
Now, we've been complimentary of a lot of the stuff we've talked about here with the Giants and Bengals offense. I'll be honest with you. I can't find a ton to say nice about the Bengals defense right now, Devin, watching them play. And Lou Anarumo was here. I think he's a really good defensive coordinator. He's doing his best. Trey Hendrickson's a really good pass rusher. Beyond that, it's been a real struggle for that defense. What are you seeing? Why has it been so bad on that side for a team that traditionally has been pretty solid on that side of the ball?
Yeah, right now, unless Lou draws something up that gets home, it's a struggle. And no defensive coordinator wants to live on having to call the perfect call against the perfect play. It's too hard to do. But when you watch the defense, to me, what sticks out is the tackling. There's times where they get a guy free. He's free to the ball. Maybe it's going to be a 2-yard gain. Running back, receiver makes a move. It's a 15-yard gain. You can't live that way. You just can't. So you play against a team like Baltimore, you have no shot. You're telling me you're going to miss tackles, do that? Now, to give Cincinnati credit, they looked better in the run game against Baltimore until the last play, not the last play, but in overtime where Henry breaks the long run. And I think as a defense, you sit back and say, look, we did all the right things, but to be a good defense, we get to overtime, we need our best. So I think the Giants, I think they'll have things that they want to do to attack certain matchups. It's going to be even tougher now. They lost Dax Hill for the year. Mike Hilton didn't play last week. So you're going to have different things they're trying to do. Von Bell and Jordan Battle kind of, flip-flopped in there. They took out Von Bell, put Jordan Battle in, but then he had a bad play. So when you have a defense that's kind of on their heels of like, hey, do we really have confidence in what we're doing? Are we playing good enough? I think Daboll's going to come out and say, hey, attack. Let's make them feel it early by driving, getting a good first drive, getting a touchdown, creating a big play to make them say, all right, here we go again, another bad game. And I think that's going to be the key. But until they tackle better, it's going to be rough for them.
You can see Devin McCourty on Football Night of America on NBC, coverage of Giants and Bengals starting at 7 p.m. Devin, anything else you're doing? Stuff on the side, charity, anything else you want to get out there? The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, man, the only other thing I would say is I'm having fun. I call games on Westwood One Radio. So with everything that's happening in the other part of New Jersey with the Jets, I'll be there Monday night.
Nice.
Calling the game, Jets in Buffalo. So, I'm having a lot of fun, I think, just with all the media stuff and still doing a lot of different things with sickle cell and helping out at Hackensack Hospital. So I always hear about all the Giants, whether it's my guy from Rutgers, O'Hara, or Eli Manning, everything they do over there. So just continue to try to be involved in as many things as possible.
We just saw the Kelsey brothers get that big deal with their podcast. Where's the McCourty brother podcast, dude? You guys got to get rolling with that, man.
I don't know if we're going to get the type of love that the Kelsey brothers got. We might just be spinning our wheel, creating content for no reason.
Good stuff, man. Hey, have fun at the game. Have fun Monday night, dude. Appreciate talking to you. This was great.
Appreciate it, man. Hey, good luck to the Giants this week.
That's former Patriots DB Devin McCourty. You can, again, see him on Football Night in America, 7 p.m. at NBC for coverage of Giants and Bengals. And stick around after the game Of course, check out our post-game coverage on the radio first. But if you are on your television, check out Peacock's Sunday Night Football Final, exclusively on Peacock on NBC. So make sure you go check that out. Thanks for being with us on the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. And again, a lot of episodes on this feed, folks. Make sure you scroll through it. A lot is set the last couple of days. Make sure you listen and check out all the content that has hit. For Devin McCourty, I'm John Schmeelk. We'll see you next time on the Giants Huddle podcast.